Now, welcome back. Deputy Interior Minister Ebenezer Taylor-Abi has defended government's decision to deport rather than prosecute foreign nationals caught engaging in illegal mining. He insists that repatriation is a more practical and effective approach given the systemic frustrations within Ghana's judicial and correctional systems. Speaking on PM Express on Tuesday, Mr. Taylor-Abi admitted the policy isn't without criticism.
We prefer repatriating them than to take them through our courts. Because you see, when you arrest them, they'll tell you, take me to court. We have lawyers, yes, rightly so. They need, to be proven guilty by our courts. But the fact is that the situation on hand, we cannot do things, the same way and think that we'll have the same results.
Mr. Taylor,
we need to be a little bit innovative. It wouldn't sound pleasant.
But the point is that where's the innovation in deporting somebody? We've done it before with Aisha One. There's no innovation there.
The point is that, you see, if you are arrested and then we get their embassies to repatriate them, because you see, the whole thing is so complex. You arrest some of them, and all they tell you is that they don't have their passports, and the identity is very difficult. So once they get into the system, it's difficult to even track some of them. You understand? So once you are lucky and you grab them, at the crime scene, now taking them, we have another challenge at our prisons. We are looking at 14,000, a population of prisoners that we have now. Feeding them is even a problem. Taking care of them. I mean, recently, last week, my boss went to Kumasi. The pictures I saw, seriously, the prisons are congested. So if there's a way to exacerbate the situation by sending these people back to their home countries, I think that I would opt for that. Yeah. I would definitely opt for that.
But Mr. Taylor-Abi, do you concede, though? You said that taking these foreigners through our legal system is frustrating. The course will frustrate you.
Yes, sometimes, yes.
But you are okay dealing with the frustrations when it comes to Ghanaians you arrest, but you are not okay dealing with the same individuals when they are foreigners. That is double standards at best.
Oh, not really, but rather, you see, let's be realistic, because you arrest about 80, Chinese, and then you have to find a place to keep them, and then sometimes even vehicles to take them to court. It's a problem. You go to court and they succeed in getting, bail.
But that also applies to the Ghanaians who arrest.
Certainly, but you see, the point is that I mean, there are a few things that I wouldn't like to disclose. Some of the things that happen behind the scenes. I wouldn't like to disclose everything on air.
Well, Deputy Director of Arocha Ghana, Daryl Bosu, disagrees.
Have elevated these attacks to dangerous terrorists. I believe that our approach to dealing with them must also change. And I must say I agree with Professor Anin when he talks about the fact that we need to be very tactical and we need to even elevate the ways in which we really bring the full force of the law against these people. So for me, it is for me very, very sad to hear that the Ministry of Interior is taking the strategy rather to deport these people. By doing this, we are really not giving the people an opportunity to see how deterrent our law is, and by that, they will definitely go and come again, as has been indicated.
Do you sympathize with the practical challenges that the Deputy Minister is just articulating? One, the prison system is choked. Two, the legal system is frustrating. Three, they will get all these lawyers to frustrate the trial. Four, they don't even have passports and it's very difficult to identify who they are. They have real challenges there, and don't waste time doing this. Just deport them and let them leave our shores. Do you have any sympathy for that?
No, unfortunately, I must say that I'm quite confused as to some of the challenges the Deputy Minister is mentioning, because I don't see it to be neither here nor there, because what is good for the goose is also good for the Ghana. And we want to see that, look, if Ghanaians are wallowing in our prison, you say it's congested, it is dirty and all of that, then let the Chinese, let the foreigners also go there so that they know that this is how deterrent our law is. And once you are found culpable, you have to face the full rigors of the law. So
problem is they may not have space for them.
I don't really understand why they want to, like you said, treat the foreigners with kid gloves. And it's only the Chinese. We have a lot of other people, other foreigners from the Burkina Faso areas, Mali, all of them. If you go to the ground, you see all of these people on the ground. And it's very sad that we are taking this approach. And just as has been said, the Minerals and Mining Amendment Act 995 is very clear. Even if you are liable for deportation, that non-Ghanaian shall, where sentenced to a term of imprisonment, serve the full sentence before deportation in accordance with subsection 3 of section 37 of Act 573. So it's really very important that we really take this into consideration. I believe that by just deporting them, we are whittling down the processes, we are whittling down away our deterrent measure, and they're not going to respect our laws anymore.
Well, what does the law say on punishment for anyone caught engaging in illegal mining? Here's what Act 995/2019 says. And on the screen, it says that a non-Ghanaian who undertakes a mining operation or facilitates the participation of any person in mining contrary to a provision of this act commits an offence and is liable on a conviction to a fine of not less than 100,000 penalty units and not more than 350,000 penalty units. And when we talk of penalty units, it's around 12 cedis for a penalty unit. And B, a term of imprisonment of not less than 20 years and not more than 25 years. Or C, both the fine and the imprisonment. Paragraph 4 says, where a non-Ghanaian who is liable on summary conviction under subsection 3 is a person liable to deportation under section 35 of the Immigration Act 2000, Act 573, that non-Ghanaian shall, where sentenced to a term of imprisonment, serve the full sentence before deportation in accordance with subsection 3 of section 37 of Act 573. Paragraph says a Ghanaian who permits a non-Ghanaian to undertake or to participate or and we're still trying to get there to complete this paragraph 5 of the Minerals Act. At least we know that the Act makes the point, on this. And meanwhile, the Central North Regional Police Command's Anti-Galamsey Task Force has arrested 5 individuals, including 3 Chinese nationals and 2 Ghanaians for engaging in illegal mining activities along River Fum in Assin Aite, near Assin Akonfudi, a farming community in the Assin North district of the Central Region. Here are extracts of their statement. And it says the arrested suspects are Dut Kwabna Sakaba, he's 38 years, Douglas Nyameche, 36, Ma Jian, 37, Chinese, Ma Young, 31, Chinese, and Ma Haibi, 54, who is also a Chinese national. So at least 3 Chinese nationals there who have been arrested for illegal mining activities. Now, the suspects are currently in police custody and preparations are underway for their court appearance, according to a statement from the Central North Regional Police Command. During the operation, 2 excavators with chassis numbers SY6HK1 XABEA01C3 and SWE365E00762 were seized. The operators of these excavators, upon seeing the police task force, fled the scene with the ignition keys. Additionally, a Toyota Hilux with registration number GE274313 was also seized. And that's the update on illegal mining. Well, we'll get more on this in subsequent bulletins. Now, moving on, the Ghana Investment Fund for Electronic Communications, GIFEC, is an agency of the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization of Ghana. Through their 6 years, 6 training programs targeting students, youth, women entrepreneurs, school teachers, persons with disability, and artisans, GIFEC is delivering training covering basic and intermediate digital skills. GIFEC has a new boss. Let's interact with him on how he intends to maximize the space and ensure GIFEC works better. And he's here with me in studio, Dr. Tanko Rashid Computer, who is acting CEO, Ghana Investment Fund for Electronic Communications, to tackle rising student and also to tackle rising student indiscipline and violence there. Mr. Rashid Tanko Computer, we are grateful for your time here on our desk. Happy to see you, though. We've been interacting a lot on phone, but now I see you in my studio.
Very well, I'm grateful. Let me say good morning to your cherished viewers, especially the good people of Bimbila and Wulesi constituencies. I wish them well, and the cherished viewers of your station.
We're grateful to have you too. How is it? I mean, so far you're there. What has been, or how has it been like being in your office?
Well, it's great. It's we are doing the reset agenda. We are resetting the place. I mean, following the footsteps of His Excellency the President John Dramani Mahama, I've been given us the task of reforming the structure of GIFEC. As you rightly put, GIFEC came into being under Act 775. Yeah. I mean, Electronic Communication Act. And chiefly, we are mandated to do 4 major things. 4 major things. The major one among the 4 is the rural telephony.
Indeed.
Yes, rural telephony is one of our biggest activities that we carry out. And then we go into areas where the major telcos don't find it economic viable to go in. So we go into underserved and unserved communities, especially the rural areas. And you realize that in Ghana, most of the communities don't have network.
Yes.
You go up, especially if you go up to Western North, Northern Regional Park, East OT regions, Volta, North-East Savannah, you see that most of the communities are virtually cut off, especially in the digital world. So what we're trying to do in GIFEC is to bring them closer, bridge the gap, the digital gap between the rural and the urban areas. I mean, the successive government tried their best to do something, but clearly looking at the mandate and then the resource available for GIFEC, they should have done more. And so what we are going to do is that we will make sure, that is why we are repositioning the communication directorate.
Right.
And thankfully enough, we have upgraded our communication wing to a directorate by appointing a substantive director of corporate affairs, so that most communities didn't know that there is an agency that will facilitate in getting this rural telephony for them. And then so they were thinking that it is rather the major telcos that they have to go in. So when they go to MTN, Telecel, or Airtel, they will tell them that no, they will come or they might not come because they don't see it economic viable. It is the mandate of GIFEC to rather make sure that they have that. Right. Then the second one, as we've just rightly put it, the cyber labs, especially the secondary schools and the JSS areas, we are going to intensify those areas to make sure that we bring basic access to internet to those communities. In fact, these cyber labs that we are building in the secondary schools is not for the urban areas. Let me be very specific. It's for the unserved and underserved communities, the rural communities.
But there are urban areas that may not necessarily have, reliable internet connectivity, and you would not do anything about that.
No, we do. That's why we describe those areas as underserved.
Exactly.
Yeah, we describe those areas as what? Underserved communities. For instance, Accra. There are areas in Accra that you go, you might not have network there.
Exactly.
So we describe those areas as underserved communities. So we focus on that. I'm just talking of areas, for instance, Accra town, where you are in Accra town, you have a secondary school in Accra town, you are talking of Achimota, Presec and all that, then you come requesting for computers, and I definitely mandate fall outside that. But if you have communities, Upper East, Upper West, they have secondary schools there, definitely we'll move in there to provide them a cyber lab. And by connecting them to dedicated internet facility, so that it will enhance teaching and learning processes in those schools.
Well, so far, what have been the immediate steps you've taken to ensure this works? So have you met with these schools or the areas? Have you been there to find out how the situation really is on the ground? What really have you done? Yes,
as of now, we are doing what we call reorganization of the area. Because what we came and met, especially when I visited the warehouse, I realized that some procurements were made about 2-3 years and dumped in the warehouse only for them to...
What sorts of procurements?
Yes, I don't understand the motive behind that. If you procure laptops, desktops, they are meant for specific purposes.
Right.
Send them to the schools, set up the labs for the teachers and students to enhance teaching and learning process. But you don't dump them in the warehouse. And some of them have gone bad.
How long ago was this? Because I knew that the previous administration had, procured these laptops, especially for teachers and whatnot, and they weren't given to many of them. So what were these laptops for specifically? How much did they cost the state?
That is a question you and I have to answer. Because what is happening, when I saw that, I was so much annoyed. You realize a lot of tablets.
How many are we talking about?
Oh, in fact, a good number of them. For instance, we in our stock, we had almost 300 tablets gone waste.
Wow.
Just lying down there. They cannot be used. Because, they have a lifespan. These gadgets, they have a lifespan. The mobile phones we are using, people don't know that it has a lifespan.
Indeed.
When it's reached its with end, it cannot be used. Even you send it to any repairer, they cannot work on it again. So when you procure tablets and you don't monitor the lifespan of it, and go and dump them in a place where there is no ventilation, okay? You put them in a warehouse, there's no ventilation, there's no lighting system there. Your guess is as good as mine. They'll get destroyed. That's why a lot of them, we just have to auction them and then throw them somewhere.
But Mr. Tanko, when you were coming into office, I'm sure you were giving handover notes detailing what your predecessor has done and what has to be done. What was in that handover note concerning these equipment that you are talking about?
You see, there's one thing having a handover note and seeing practical those things. You see, Ghana, the tendency of people handing over documents to you without you going behind the scene to see what is inside. In fact, we have to change our style of handing over. We need to see things physically before you take over. But what we see these days is that they only dump some documents to you and tell you these are handing over notes. You go and see different things on the ground. So invariably, in my handing over notes, yes, I saw that there were items they put in there as haven't been the access of GIFEC.
Right.
But when we went and visited the warehouse, what we saw was completely different. These were things that you procure for 2 years. Why were you keeping them there? If you procure laptops, desktops meant for the schools, why are they were they keeping them in the warehouse? Doing what? That's how we waste Ghana resources.
So who's going to be held accountable for that?
That is the problem.
This is taxpayers' money.
Taxpayers' money. That's what we're talking about.
How much did these equipment cost?
Look, staggering almost 2 to 3 million Ghana cedis to buy such
and is
digest.
Half of them gone waste?
Gone waste, completely waste.
Who is taking account for that?
Of course, we'll get there. That's why we are saying research agenda is ongoing. When we start dealing with people, then people will say that NDC government is chasing people left and right. But they forget to realize the kind of thing they are doing. If you go and see our vehicles dumped at roadside fitters, gone bad completely. I mean, we don't do this. So what we are doing is that we are resetting the place, trying to reposition it and make sure that the rural communities, they enjoy the fruit of their labor because their taxes are being used to procure all these things. Although GIFEC is not subvented by government, but it's a government agency.
Indeed.
Go work closely with our major,
yes,
and the Ministry of Communication. Work closely with the major telecos. So we will provide the infrastructure, then the major telecos will leverage on it to provide a network to the communities. Now, these are the things we are trying to do. We have CICs. There's another component of our work known as CICs, the Community Information Centers. This time, we want to christen it to Community ICT Centers. Because we used to call it, this one, we have about 250 of them.
But they're supposed to serve the same purpose.
Good, but they have completely been run down.
Do you need to change the name to make it work?
Because when we describe them as Community Information Centers, some people thought it was meant for Information Service Department.
But it is under your, outfit,
yes,
under the Ministry of Communications. How is it going to be under the information
I'm saying that
ministry?
that is a mistake the framers made.
If there are clear-cut directives, communication on those offices, how will it be, misinterpreted?
That is the problem. That is why you see that the CICs are not serving the purpose of which they were built. You go there and they are being occupied by security agents. Either fire services using it as their office accommodation, or you have police using it as their depots or something like that nature. Others are being used by other agencies, being occupied. The purpose of the CICs was to bridge the digital divide between the rural and the urban communities. Things that you want to do, one-stop shop ICT activities, where they're supposed to stock them with state-of-the-art equipment, gadgets, ICT gadgets. You have printers, scanners, you have laptops, you have desktop connected with internet, so that any activity that you want to do concerning digital activities, you move in the community. So, for instance, you want to process your passport. Instead of traveling all the way from your rural community to the urban areas, if you go to our CIC center, they should be able to do all these things for you.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, it was run down, and people have used it as an accommodation for security services and other things.
If it was run down and
yes,
you are there to correct that
so that's what we have
impression, do you necessarily have to change the name, which is also going to cost the government some money?
You don't cost it.
No
person is going to.
You are going to rebrand.
No, don't rebrand it.
That cost money?
No, we are not rebranding.
How are you going to do that?
It's the same thing. You see, they were not printed and written community information centers. No. What we are saying is that we just want.
You are going to change letterheads.
No.
You are going to update websites.
We use our letterhead, GIFEC letterhead, for all our activities. We don't have specific letterheads for our projects. So what we are doing is that we are saying that, yes, it's a community information center, but we want people to know that it is properly christened as community ICT centers. It's the same thing. So the ICT center.
What's going to go into the christening?
Yes, it's just letting the general, but that's why we have repositioned our corporate affairs directory to let people know that anything about digitalization is in that center. Go in there, any information that you need about digitalization or digital world, go to that center. And then you are sorted out.
How are you going to communicate that?
Of course, that is why we have appointed a seasoned communicator as our director of communication at GIFEC recently. And I'm saying that we are going to rehabilitate all the, we are doing the coding system. Fortunately, it's going to be launched this month. The 1 million coders. It's under the Ministry of Communication.
Okay.
And then GIFEC is spearheading that one too. And we are going to use all our community, let me still use the information service. People know that those centers that you call information centers, we are going to use them. We are going to rehabilitate them. Now bring in state-of-the-art equipment for the coded system. Because the coding system is going to be district-based. It's not going to be like regional-based, where people have to mass up to a regional point. We want to do it at the district levels. And then so all these community ICT center or information centers are going to be refurbished. So those occupying the security services, I'm using this, your platform, to let them know that they should start packing out from the place. Because these are GIFEC facilities. Because the former administration were not making good use of it, we are coming to make good use of it and let our people enjoy. Look, our women, our young ladies, youth in ICT, we call it girls in ICT, the one you were talking of. We are partnering with DTC, this GIZ project, to train them in digital communication and as well as digital marketing.
These I mean,
yes, the CIC centers. Yes.
All right. So briefly, I have to let you go because of time. What do you intend to achieve in this first quarter? I mean, we talk about many things, but specifically, what targets will you achieve in your first quarter?
Yes, what we are doing currently, our first, in fact, this year, what we intend to achieve is to make sure that communities that had difficulties with network, we have about 2016 that the former administration started. Unfortunately, they did only 1,000. We will make sure that all the 1,550 left, which they started infrastructure, we will make sure that they are functioning and traffic will pass through them in those communities, because it's dear to our heart and it's dear to the heart of His Excellency John Dramani. Don't forget, he's a former communication minister, and he knows the importance of communication. When he was going through the campaign trade in 2024, there were certain communities he went and nobody could make call in those areas. It poses a lot of security challenge to every person in this country. Because if dissidents or these jihadists who are disturbing our sub-regions should move into those communities, they will cause havoc and nobody will know. You cannot even report. So our intention within this year, by the close of this year, is to make sure that those communities are connected and traffic will pass through to all their digital centers that we are going to put up there, so that they can make voice as well as data internet activities in those areas. That is our key thing. And then this coded system that we are also doing, at least by the end of this year, 100,000 of Ghanaian youth should be able to start the process. We are starting with 200 as a pilot bid for the launch, after which we will recruit 100,000 of them. We promise 1 million. The 900,000 will be spread across 3-year period. So by the time we finish our first term and move into the second term, of course, we are going to win in 2028. This terrible MPP.
But then, I mean, with all these...
That one there, this is what we are going to do. And so it's an exciting news for the good people of Ghana, especially the youth.
How much is this everything costing government or your outfit to undertake?
You're referring to the coded system or
the coding system, how they call it?
The rural telephony. Of course, the rural telephony is a major budgetary, and thankfully enough, government has allocated about 100 million Ghana cedis to support in that process. Already we had some funding with the China Exim Bank, which of course, because of their haircutting they were doing, they stopped the funding. Thankfully, this current administration, His Excellency, we have to thank His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the Finance Minister, for allocating this fund for us to continue the rural telephony.
And the coding?
The coding system, of course, if you watch closely during the budget reading, an amount was also allocated to kickstart. That one to about 100 million or so Ghana cedis was put in there. GFEC is also coming in with a support in that direction, so that we start the first part of it. So when we're talking of the coding, let me also add something. When we say we are training 1 million Ghanaian coders, it is not only the coding that we are going to do. Digital skills is also going to be part and parcel, as well as cyber security. Are all models that are going to be part. So it's exciting news for the good people of Ghana, especially the youth. They are going to enjoy it, and it's going to create a lot of job opportunity, because certification, they are going to get certificate, international recognized certificate after the end of the process. So this is an exciting news for them. They have made a good choice by voting for the NDC, and they are going to enjoy the fruit.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rashid Computer Tanko there. Acting CEO of GIFEC. Now let's do climate focus next, but we'll take a break and we'll return with more stories. Welcome back to News Desk. Now let's engage the movement for change on the verdict of President Mahama's first 3 months in office and other topical issues. And joining me on this is Kwame O, Danso, private legal practitioner, also the 2024 vice presidential candidate for Movement for Change. You're welcome, Kwame.
Well, thank you very kindly.
Good to see you in the studio.
Likewise.
Yeah, in very high spirits. Well, at least.
Yeah, well, at the very least, we were expecting a change. And
how did you feel when you didn't win the election?
I think we all went into the election expecting to have a different outcome. All of us. One is to see the back of the MPP, and two is to get into office. So either way, you know, even though, yes, the movement for change did not secure the ultimate victory, we've seen the back of the MPP.
You're happy with that?
Absolutely.
You're happy with the new government in office?
Well, I think it's early days yet. But we can see that there's a huge dichotomy between this particular administration and the administration that we experienced from 2017 to 2024. And I say this because of some multiplicity of factors. One, I think in their 120 days social contract,
yes,
they intimated that they were going to do a number of things. And as far as I'm concerned, they've been able to achieve some of them, maybe not all. I think His Excellency John Dramani Mahama said he was going to form his government of 60 ministers.
Yes.
And I think it's not even up to 60 yet.
Yes, it's not.
Yeah. So I think that in that respect, you know, we can give him his accolade. Similarly, he said, I think they were going to organize some national economic dialogue and some dialogue on education and how to see whether or not we can advance, you know, the pursuit of better education in Ghana. I think they've largely been able to do them. But as to whether or not that will yield the results that we are looking for is a conversation that we can have later.
Okay.
And that will be dependent on how well they are able to execute the prescriptions flowing from the series of dialogues that they've had. And Ghanaians will be best placed to determine whether, you know, the government has performed better or not. Having said that, you can also attest to the fact that how they have decided to conduct themselves, particularly specific ministries, in relation to some allegations, is also, you know, very welcoming. That you have, and I think Erasmus, one of your colleagues, is on record to have indicated that even though the fight against Galamsey is still an ongoing, you know, lingering national security issue.
Well, let me just bat into that right now. I mean, our first story had to do with the Minister of Interior saying that, you know, non-Ghanaians who are caught engaging in illegal mining should be deported instead of having to be imprisoned or pay a fine, or even both. What's your take on that? Well,
to be honest with you, I'm still yet to understand government's specific policy on Galamsey. I'm yet to understand it.
But at least we have the Minerals Act.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those things, but you see, those things cannot fuel themselves. It ought to be fueled by a specific government policy to addressing this medicine development. In fact, which matter has to be dealt with holistically without any political underpinnings. I mean, partisan political underpinnings. What I'm trying to say is that if you say that a foreign national who is engaged in an illegality must be deported rather than face the laws of this country, I think it's hypocritical. The reason being that we have experimented with that and it did not yield any positive outcome. Aisha Wang is a typical example. She was found to have been involved in Galamsey.
Yeah.
She was arrested, she was deported, and she found her way back into the country. And so for me, that solution...
Repatriated, though.
Yeah, repatriated. Oh, what did I say? Did I say what?
Deportation. I think there are two different.
Okay. No, well, I don't know whether she was deported or repatriated.
She was repatriated.
Repatriation, okay, well, it depends on how your definition of repatriation.
You look at it.
Yeah, but I know that she was deported back to her country and then came back, you know, into the country. The next moment, she was back on the site, still engaged in the illegality, for which reason she was deported. I'm simply saying that if you went to China today and you flouted the laws of China, you will be dealt with in accordance with the laws of China. Galamsey is an illegality. It's a criminal act. People are stealing from the state. It doesn't matter whether or not the person is Ghanaian or the person is not Ghanaian. Insofar as the person has flagrantly disrespected the rules and the laws governing, you know, specific operations, those people must be dealt with in line with the laws governing it. And I believe that when you do these things, you are only emboldening people, that some people must be treated differently from the Ghanaians who are supposed to even benefit from, you know, from mining. You know, so it's just, I don't know how to describe it, but I think that, you know, we ought to be fair to everybody. If we are saying that when Ghanaians do it, we must prosecute them, then when a non-Ghanaian also does it, we must prosecute them. I think we must be fair to each you know, to all of us.
But is it also, you know, they are prosecuted
Yeah.
But the fact is, they cannot be taken into our prisons because of congestion.
Why?
Also because of, like the minister put it, Tel Aviv, issues about frustrations in the legal system. Those are, tangible reasons that we can, add on to the issues that we already have. So they should be repatriated or deported into their countries so that their countries can deal with them. You think that those reasons are not tangible enough?
You see, the thing is that, like I told you before, I can't go to China and commit an offense and expect to be deported.
China has the facilities.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's not about facility. So in this country, if people commit an offense, do we say that by reason of the non-availability of facilities, those people will not be prosecuted? I don't think that we do that. When people commit very minor offenses, people are hungry, they go to somebody's farm and then they uproot maybe some cassava and things. Those people are jailed for 5-10 years, right? People are engaged in the degradation of our lands. People are engaged in the dissipation, if you like, of our waters. And we expect that they do not suffer for it. We expect that we should let them go because of our inability to provide enough, facilities, to jail these people. I don't think that is the way to go. When you do these things, you are rather encouraging foreigners to come into the country and commit these offenses, because the only penalty they may suffer is to be deported, after which they would have, they can even come back again, or they would have made so much money and they would damn the consequences. I think that we should be very forward thinking, as a nation. If we want our laws to work and work effectively, it must apply to all parties, irrespective of
where they come from. So for you, the law must be implemented to the letter.
Absolutely.
Interesting. There's also this issue about the trade tariffs brewing, the US 10% tariff on exports from Ghana and other countries as well. I know you've written a paper on it. You share your views with us, what you make of it, at least after it's having a meeting next week. What should they be considering?
So, the paper came out before the imposition of the 10% tariff.
Okay.
And it was like I was a prophet, in trying to delve into trade and find out the effect that the imposition of, for instance, first of all, the US-China trade war would have on the economy of Ghana. And I looked at it from a multiplicity of factors. One has to do with the commodities that we export. So in Ghana, we largely export cocoa, gold, and oil. And if you notice, in 2018, Trump had also imposed some tariffs, I think about 60 or 65% on China, and the effect it had on the Ghanaian economy. In fact, the sub-Saharan Africa. So if you, for instance, look at a research that was done by Science Direct, they allude that because of that imposition of tariff, it affected the export of cocoa. Indeed, cocoa, that it contributes 10% to our GDP. But around that time, the exportation of cocoa declined by some 5% by reason of this particular imposition of tariff, because we export largely to Asia, to China, and all of that. And because of the imposition, it affected, for instance, their demand for cocoa and things like that. It affected the economy. And then you also look at gold. Gold, obviously, because of that, it appreciated a little bit. In fact, also helped in just a marginal increase in our GDP, I think about 0.04%.
Right.
Because people now were dealing with safe havens and things like that. So it showed up a bit. But that is not sustainable, because obviously we have some other ancillary matters, relative to gold. And then you look at oil. Oil, we've been relying on it, but we've not really placed value on it in terms of value addition. And therefore, the revenue that ought to be generated from it is not. So the paper largely was looking at that. And then looking at the 2025 tariff imposition and how we can take advantage of same. Now, I sought to look at it from the perspective of regional, integration. And then I also sought to look at it from how we can protect our local industries and strengthening what I call diversification. In trade, we call something diversification or diversion, trade diversion. So in 2018, as I was telling you, China now, because of the tariff, did what we call a diversion. Now, the diversion was that products that were originally meant to go to USA now found its way in Africa. So it helped the economy a little bit. But it also has an effect on the manufacturing sector. So Guta even came out to say that about 40,000 people had lost their jobs by reason of that, right? So now how do we take advantage of it?
Situation, yeah.
Exactly. So that's a question that all of us must seek to answer. Now, we can take advantage of it if we look at strengthening the one district, one factory. And I will continuously say that we must be very intentional about improving one district, one factory, and then also strengthening our local industries. Because once we are able to decentralize the industries or the factories, right, and we specifically invest in agro-business, we create agro-business hubs across the various regions, we'll be able to now add value. So, for instance, cashew, is one commodity now that is gaining a lot of market,
yes.
And so we need to set up a factory that will specifically harness that potential. Then you also look at regional trade, and I'm happy that you made mention of the African Continental Free Trade Area.
Yes.
The idea really is to ensure that within the African sub-region or the sub-Saharan African context, we'll be able to trade amongst ourselves because it's a large market. But as a continent, we have developed so much taste and interest for foreign products as opposed to products that we produce or commodities that we produce ourselves.
Right.
So then how do we now deal with it? There must be specificity in terms of production or in terms of manufacturing. There must be a marriage between trade policy and industrial policy. There must be specificity in terms of our policy prescriptions for the purposes of enhancing agriculture and creating specific agro-parks, or rather agro-business hubs that will ensure that we add value to the commodities that we have for export, and we can export within the continent. All we need to do is to reduce the barriers.
Right.
And I think that AFTA should rather focus so much now, more than ever before, on the barriers which prevent us from trading amongst ourselves.
So for you, please finish.
Because once we are able to do that, then you can freely now move goods and services across the continent, which obviously will also bring in some revenue. And then your businesses or your manufacturing and industry sector will also expand. Bear in mind that all of these conversations that we're having, it also has a serious impact on foreign direct investment. Because if you recall, I think between 2018 and 2020, we realized about 3.6, I stand to be corrected, 3 billion from just dollars from foreign direct investment.
Right.
But because of these tariffs and the trade war and things like that, it reduced to some 2.6 billion, right? So how then do we ensure that our economy is robust so that investors will have confidence, in us as a host nation, so that they can bring investment into the country? These are things that we ought to look at so that we can shape our trade, sector. I think, if you ask me, that we have not done ourselves, in fact, we've done ourselves a great disservice by not specifically focusing our attention on trade and industry. It appears that we are looking
at... We'll have to be brief about that.
All right. It appears that we are focusing so much on, okay, let's cushion the economy, let's make the city better and all of that. But the how is what, So, of course, we are increasing policy rates by 1 percentage point, because, that will help in the short term. But in the long term, what is our plan for a better economic outlook?
Very briefly, just before you go, how is Movement for Change clawing back, after the loss in the last election?
I think that we are all, and for me, I'll be very candid with you. I'm a Ghanaian first before any political affiliation, right? And I believe that after an election, after we've gone into an election and a particular candidate wins, all of us, irrespective of which political party you belong to, must throw your weight behind that political party to succeed. This thing about wanting to smear, the political party so that you can get a message for your next political campaign or your campaign, I think is very retrogressive and is non-patriotic. What we should do is to all come together, support this particular administration succeed. In the final analysis, if His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is able to do the things that he says he wants to do for the good of this country, all of us will stand to benefit from it.
This has nothing to do with
absolutely. So
working in the Vice President's office?
I'm sorry?
This has nothing to do with Amma Pratt working in the Vice President's office?
My wife is an independent, you know her, an independent-minded woman. I respect so much. She has her values. She sticks to those values. I have my values. I stick by them. But I'm a Ghanaian first, like I told you, before any other thing. If NDC does something that I feel contravenes the contracts that they've signed with the good people of this country, I'll be here to expose them.
Thank you so much, Kwame O. Danso.
Thank you.
2024 running mate for Movement for Change, and that's how we wrap up that conversation here on News Desk. We leave you with Climate Focus.
Rising temperatures linked to changing weather patterns are pushing bears and their farmers to the edge. Heat stress is taking a toll. Farmers report mysterious deaths, reduced egg production, and mounting financial losses.
We keep 200 birds. That they were all fine, they were eating well, and they were growing well. All of a sudden, they started dying one after the other.
For Esther Andor, a farm manager at Dorothy's Garden of Eden Farm, the nightmare began in January 2024.
Then a day came, about 50 of them died. We didn't know the reason why that happened. So we called someone and consulted, and the person advised us to increase their water and also give them some antibiotic. It could be a kind of disease that is affecting them. So we did that, but nothing changed.
Like Esther, dozens of farmers across Accra and other places have experienced sudden poultry deaths.
A cousin of mine divided the pen into two, up and down. And that was the last Salah time. Just one day in the afternoon, he lost about 53 birds, just like that.
But hope has come. The Livestock Industry Foundation for Africa, LIFA, has stepped in. They train 200 poultry farmers on managing heat stress, from better housing design to specialized nutrition. Professor Adebukola Olufumilayo Lala is a researcher with LIFA.
I was saying earlier that some of the solution is you have a good, well-ventilated building, and your cooling system should be effective in terms of providing cool water, cool clean water, increasing your water points, the water trunk during heat stress, then reducing the number of animals you place per space. If you have been placing like 10 per 1 meter scale, reduce it so that they can have enough air to circulate among them. Then we have different nutritional strategies too that we, like using of electrolytes, the energy content, reducing it, then using of amino acid to supplement for protein levels. We have dual feeding. We have different systems that we can giving pelletized food instead of mash. So there are so various of these systems.
Experts recommend keeping bears within the thermoneutral zone between 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. When bears overheat, they eat less, grow slower, and often die suddenly. Akosia Ajimai is an agricultural extension officer at La Nkwantana Medina Municipal Assembly.
So on Thursday, I went to see a farmer on my usual rounds, and he complained of his poultry, his ducks dying. And well, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't have an idea about what is happening. So I told him I would consult the veterinary officer to see what's happening. But when I came here and I heard about the heat stress, I realized it could be because where the ducks were kept, there is no shade. So it's like they are under the direct sunlight. So I realized that, okay, it could be heat stress that is killing them. So right now, I'll be visiting him again on Thursday, and I'll be recommending to him to put up a shade for the birds, and so that we will be able to monitor and see if it's actually heat stress or something else. But from what I have heard, I believe strongly that it could be heat stress.
Farmers like Almiyao Abdurrahim now realize the power of climate-smart poultry management.
We ascribe some of the challenges to other problems, viral attacks, viral or bacteria challenges on the farms. But practically, some of the problems we face on the farms is just as a result of heat. And then managing heat on the farm could solve some of these problems. But we spend a lot of money in buying antibiotics and then thinking that it is an infection that we need to resolve. But it is just a problem of heat, and when properly managed, those problems can be easily solved.
As the weather patterns change, adapting farming practices is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And with the right knowledge, poultry farmers can beat the heat and protect their livelihoods. A report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
Climate Focus is brought to you by JoyNews in partnership with Youth Bridge Foundation, bridging gaps for positive youth development, and the Climate Development Knowledge Network.